Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spectrum with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've covered this week's Marvel books as well as a few of this week's DC books already, and now it's time to finish things up with this week's Batman books. Starting off with Batman number 124. So, for the last couple months, I believe, we've been in the midst of Shadow War in Batman. After having wrapped up the Abyss story. Well, it wasn't as wrapped up as we might have thought. So we're back in Benicia. We open with a couple walking through streets. Apparently, a theater is showing the Mark of Zorro when they're attacked by Abyss. Back in Gotham, Oracle contacts Batman about this. And as they talk, well, it turns out Bruce is already in Badnesia. Apparently, the old LexCorp building there has been torched. Batman thinking it could have been Lex covering his tracks, or maybe someone else. But he fights Abyss, and apparently this time he's prepared. Basically a flashbang batarang, and Abyss is revealed to be none other than Detective Chaya, or Detective not Chaya, Kaya. Misread. She's taken on the mantle of Abyss to use the fear of Badnesia's criminals to solve a case, the disappearance of her parents. After the whole thing with Lex and Abyss, Detective Kaya was able to find out new information on her parents. But maybe Lex had been involved. It wasn't. He wasn't, though. There's some rich businessmen here. So she stole Abyss's gear to frighten them. Destroyed Lex's lab to cover her tracks. Scared all the right people, and she has the identity of the hitman who kidnapped her parents. And she intends to go kill him. And she said that she ran from Batman because she knew that he'd stop her. But he talks about how years ago, when he became Batman, before he became Batman, rather, people basically very people very important to him were taken, and he traveled the world with a new mission, learning everything he could. But he trained to avenge them. And when he returned home, the killer had been caught, had confessed. Justice had been served, but for Bruce, that wasn't good enough. In his travels, he learned how to kill. But he made a vow to never commit that act. But Bruce needed to see Joe Chill. So he broke into Blackgate. So he infiltrated Blackgate and looked in on Joe Chill and imagined beating him to death. And apparently, but Batman made a choice. And so Batman and the detective go to the bar that the hitman's hiding at, and they take on the various people there. Abyss finds her target, asks where her parents are, and is informed that they're dead and buried. And she raises her arm to killing blow and notices Batman's just standing watching. Then she asks if he's going to stop her. They find Kaya's parents, and then later she asks Batman why he didn't stop her. He explains he'd seen others go down that path before, and if he had stopped her from killing, it wouldn't be the last time that she almost did, that she possibly tried to kill someone. And she asked Batman if his offer still stands. And he gives her the card from Batman Incorporated and tells her to stay out of trouble. And so she asks if he killed Joe Chill, and he says no. And she asks why, and he has, in that moment when he stared into the dark, he saw something that scared him. He saw himself. This is being the finale, the Abyss finale. We have a backup story which actually sets up our next book, Poison Ivy #1, called Photosynthesis. In her greenhouse in Gotham, Ivy's trying to figure out what to do. The gardener comes to see her. They talk. They argue a bit. Turns out that Ivy's powers, since re-merging the two separated halves, have diminished greatly. Ivy's mad at the gardener for this. The gardener saying that there was no way that Ivy could have survived fused with the green the way she was. Her consciousness would have dissipated. Her body would have broken down, or would be nothing left of Ivy but some trace DNA in a really big houseplant. And so but Ivy wants that connection back. And there's one person who can help. There's one person who can give her the powers she lost, and the gardener rips into her for this. I assume it's supposed to be Jason Woodrard, the Floronic Man, or the Green Man. And Ivy left. Her powers further fading. And she gets picked up on the side of the road, knowing that the Green is awake and alive. If Earth wants to survive this apocalypse, and where the Earth leads, she will follow. And that is where this issue ends. But like I said, it leads right into our next book, Poison Ivy #1. So, during Fear State, Poison Ivy was the two aspects of there were two aspects of Poison Ivy. There was basically the plant goddess Ivy and Pamela, and the two were re-merged into one being. Though this is not something that's entirely set well with Ivy. And while Ivy tried to reconnect with Harley Quinn. Well, Harley's actually trying to be, not not be not be a criminal anymore, not and be kind of a good guy, and basically kind of send Ivy to to find herself. So we begin. The the way the narration of it is kind of comes off as more of a diary without diary entry this day without any kind of specificity as to when the entries are made, but we see some dead cattle, and it's explained that I doesn't like killing animals and doesn't like killing anybody. But the thing is that humankind has warped the natural landscape so completely that our food has become an ecological cancer. The cattle that were killed were never meant to be in Wyoming, where they were. The native species that evolved in harmony with the lands starved beneath the hooves of the cows. So the kind thing to do is give them back to the earth. Let them nourish the creatures that they would otherwise have destroyed. She adds, death is not something to fear. It's coming for all of us sooner or later, like an old friend. So the owners of the cattle that she's killed show up. One of them threatens Ivy, and turns out that what she's done is basically unleashed parasitic mushrooms into the cattle at a rather quickly growing, rather accelerated growth rate. Basically, they have as the cattle die, they have a sense, a feeling of relaxed euphoria. She then does the same thing to one of the owners of the cattle and returns to her van, which appears to be the same van that picked her up at the end of the backup story. A couple that picked her up, Katie and Kyle, and well, they're growing. They're also turning into masses of mushrooms. She continues driving. She's heading to Seattle. Stops briefly in a bar. She misses Harley. Even explaining, even after everything that was said and even after the way they parted, you can still see Harley when she closes her eyes, and more she can see her when her eyes are open too. But they argued over since Harley was also involved in fusing the two aspects of Ivy back into one. Ivy is not exactly happy about that. So at the height of her powers, she spared the city of Gotham, and in return, Harley and the Gardener clipped Ivy's wings. And Ivy notes that Harley, of all people, would understand why it's so hard for her to forgive that. A couple of the locals try to chat Ivy up, but she's not. Assuming she's a lot lizard. Outside, they follow her outside as she leaves, and she turns them into the mushroom colonies. And one of them gets a hallucination of her that hallucinates her more closer to how most people imagine the character. I'll go ahead and show you. Honestly, I like that look for Ivy. It's really cool. I dig it. But when she can't control the green anymore, or refuse with it, it's not like she could before. The psilocybin-induced light show is as close as she can get. But she's asked why she's so sad. Everything's so beautiful. And she tells the guy that she's sad because she's not coming along for the Great Extinction. She can't feel the Earth talking and the power of it, and not even, she can't anymore. But she knows it's there. And so gets back on the road, and one of her victims turns out is not as dead as she would have thought. And that is where the issue ends. Interesting kickoff this year. I'm digging the book. I really am. I'm assuming that DC has plans to bring Harley and Ivy back together, and I guess we'll have to see how that all plays out in the coming months, years, however long it takes. But it's a good start for the first issue of Poison Ivy, I gotta say. Moving on to our next book, we've got Batman Killing Time, number 4. Where we left off, we found out what it was that the Riddler stole. An artifact referred to as the Eye of... That was... it can be referred to as the Eye of God, which had been gifted to Bruce Wayne by Ra's al Ghul after... at the end of Bruce's training. So, as just like with every other issue, the story kind of jumps all over the place, time point wise. Starts with Batman fighting off cats in a cat reserve that Catwoman was hiding in. Later on, Riddler is meeting with his buyer. Though it's shown that before that, the buyer basically paid everyone within the diner to evacuate. Our ancient Greece flashbacks. Agave of Thebes carries her son's head on a stick found in the forest, and apparently she thinks it's a lion's head. Wants to show it to her son. The Help, meanwhile, is trying to find a local map. Asks a gas attendant to buy one, but the attendant says, "Don't you have a phone?" So the help kills the attendant and uses his phone to find exactly the information he needs, leading to him going to the big cat sanctuary. Riddler's negotiations are not going too well, but there is a plan. And we see the dramatization of Agave of Thebes' plight. Back with the Help, he ends up helping Batman, using his blade, which he's coated in strong dose of anesthetic, to briefly knock out the tiger, who seemingly has the advantage over Batman. Turns out that The Riddler's buyer is government. The Penguin's not happy that the Help has basically betrayed him. Batman and the Help work together to subdue the cats and offer to work together. At the diner, Catwoman's hiding in the kitchen, waiting for just that right moment to strike. While Riddler basically turns the tables on his buyer. And it turns out that the Help was present, or observing, not involved, but observing some of Batman's training under Ra's al Ghul. As Ra's declares Bruce to be his heir. Apparently, the Help was also once named Ra's heir. Negotiations with the buyer get physical, and the Penguin is recruiting from throughout the Gotham underworld to go after Batman, Riddler, Catwoman, and presumably also the Help. Speaks with Two-Face, who's not his first visit, nor his last. And 16 hours later, well, there's apparently going to be a large to-do about 600 miles west of Gotham. But the Help questioned some people at the diner. They saw nothing. He and Batman both agree that they're clearly lying, but and Batman admits that yes, what's been stolen is his. And that is where the issue ends. Okay, I'm enjoying Killing Time. It's really good, but going back and forth throughout, it gets annoying after a while. It's a similar problem I'm having with Tom King's other currently running Bat series, Batman Catwoman, is that it jumps around in time too much. Even though with that there's not it just the way it looks, it's clear that it's what time point. Whereas this one we get, oh, this happened, so here's this. Oh, and then so many hours earlier this happened. And yeah, it makes the story hard. It does make the story harder to follow, especially on a month-by-month basis. I get to feel this is probably end up being one of those series that is going to work really well in collected format, but as good as it is, and as interesting and engaging a story as it is, it's still with the jumping around. It makes it harder to. You get really entrenched with one portion of it, and then we're 3,000 years ago. Oh, we're we're so many hours after the last panel I read. It just gets. Anyway, moving on to our last book for the week, we've got Batman Beyond Neo Year number 3, where we left off, the Gotham AI is doing what it can to has been making life harder for Batman Beyond. So we open with Commissioner Barbara Gordon, Gotham City Police Department Commissioner, attending a party held by Lumos, to celebrate her retirement. Terry showed up as Neil Gibson, looking the part of a Neo Gotham socialite. Another attendee is Officer Bunma. But Terry makes a point of listening to the conversations being held around him. Barbara gives a speech about not the kind of not one of those it basically how explaining that. It says starts by saying you should have seen Gotham back in the day. That's what they say when you ask old timers like Barbara about the way the city has changed. But she says that's garbage. The real truth is that Gotham has always hated us, people. That's what cities do. They put us all together and tell us to trust one another. Then when things go bad, we blame the bad actor, the criminal, the supervillain, and ignore the system. When she was young, she spent years inside the numbers of the city, in its darkest corners, listening to its tempers, its illnesses, and pain. To her, it's not just a city, it's a person, a living, breathing person, and despite the hate in its heart, they can make it better together. The city has a pulse if you listen to it, but you've got to listen to it. Buma likes this, but Lumos makes an announcement that Wayne Powers, which he is now the CEO of, will be personally funding the Neo Gotham Police Department. We'll find out that the mayor has been missing for 32 hours. Barbara is not happy about Lumos' plan to fund the Neo Gotham PD single-handedly. But that isn't, he doesn't care about Gotham. But he does want it to work, because when Gotham works, people make money, and more importantly, he makes money. And he's the most selfish man that she'll ever meet, and it's a point of genuine pride. But he will do everything to protect the city, because seriously, as an asset, it's entirely too valuable. But Terry starts reading the room, looking for, and he and Bunma start talking, and they end up going to get a burger. Though Terry keeps, as the party was a mask party, and he's keeping his mask on, but they're having they share Big Belly burgers. But Buma doesn't trust Terry, and in part because he's wearing an identity scrambler. And she says that if he ever comes around her with a fake face again, she'll hit him so hard that the real one gets rearranged. But that the next time he encounters Bunma, she'll see his real face, the face of Batman. But she did give him a tip about the missing mayor, so he goes to investigate goes to City Hall, walks in the mayor's office, but it's trapped. An elaborate holographic trap. Gotham is taken prisoner. Mayor's long dead. And the Sword of Gotham once again attacks Batman. That is where the issue ends. I'm digging the Neo Year series. It's interesting. It's an interesting direction to take the Batman Beyond mythos in, and you know what? I'm here for it. It is interesting to see Terry operating without the guidance of Bruce, and it's something that's noted throughout. That's been noted throughout, and with good reason, because in the cartoon, in comics that have come out since the cartoon, Terry's always had Bruce Wayne in his ear, but he doesn't anymore because Bruce is dead. So, but anyway, so he kind of said, move forward on his own. Anyway, that's going to do it for now, as always. Actually, that's going to do it for this week. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.